Oh, no. What up, what up, what up? Happy Wednesday to everybody. Welcome to the Menswear Mastermind. Please make sure you bring your questions, your style questions that you may have. Unfortunately, I am going to be the only person here today. Um, Hence why you don't see the background. For some reason, the background was acting up. But if you have any style questions, by all means, leave them in the comments. Let's not wait till the end of the session. We're here till 8:25, or I'm here till 8:25. Um, so ask your questions, and I will be happy to answer them. So outside of that, how is everybody doing this evening? Let us know where you're checking in from, and we'll go ahead and get started. If I don't have any questions tonight, because I don't have somebody to bounce conversations off of, I'm not going to keep you guys on. So this is always where I always like to say, like, if you have a question, if you have 15, 20 questions, far better for you to ask them now, because we can delve deeper into the topic or into the question that you may have and really get your questions answered. So there are people who will pay significant amount of money, and pretty soon, whether you realize it or not, once Style Jumper Lad and myself are back into the rhythm of posting on YouTube and things of that nature, and as the awareness starts to grow, these conversations will become more filled, more public, right? And so I always say this is kind of like those opportunities for you to talk with somebody who really has an awareness of their concept or their practice. So this is where you get the expertise from. So I always advise, if you have these opportunities, ask the questions. If people have shown competency, if they've shown proficiency in their craft or in their field, it's always great to have those conversations, because what will inevitably end up happening is you'll say, man, I was around at the beginning, and I've been supporting, and we look out. Of course, we're going to be looking for you, and at the same time, we still have to make sure that we're being mindful of the rest of the people who are involved as things grow. I think about somebody like Gary Vee, or I think about somebody. Um, I'm not a Andrew Tate guy personally, but when these guys first got started, I didn't have any questions for Andrew Tate. But if I was a Andrew Tate fan, you had the opportunity to work with him when he had 50 or 60 people on his live versus thousands of guys on his live. How many questions would you have asked? So again, if we don't have any questions, probably about it's 8:06 now. If I don't see any questions within the next 5 to 10 minutes, we'll go ahead and end the session, the shoot around today early, and we'll reconvene. But I definitely wanted to make sure I was available for everybody who was going to hop on, to make sure that they were seen. So as I made mention, if you've been following me on my page, we're going to be converting my page to a business casual um, channel, and I've been very excited about what that is going to look like. So just wanted to make sure I reiterate that if you are a professional and you are in a corporate space that is not requiring you to be formal, this is going to be a great channel, because it's going to give you some insights on how to show up as the best version of yourself. All the concepts still remain the same: leadership, attraction, as well as transformation and strategy. It's just going to be packaged in a space for business. So Um, yeah, that's it. Appreciate you, Ephraim Harden, looking sharp. I hope that you guys are enjoying your Wednesday. Listen, you guys got questions, by all means, ask them. Like I said, this is a great time to ask questions, or if you have any style advice that you may need, it's a great time to ask so that I can make sure that you are getting the things that you need. If not, like I said, by next 5 minutes, if we don't see anything, we'll go ahead and end the live. No harm, no foul. This happens sometimes. Um, and we'll go from there. No problem. And I'm very much appreciative of you guys showing up as well. So if I don't see anything on here, we will go ahead and end the live early. If I don't see any questions. All right, my man Key. What's going on, Mark? Thoughts on notchless lapels? Personally, I'm not a fan. Good evening. What's going on, family? So thoughts on notchless lapels. Personally, I'm not a fan outside of like resort, which is something you and I had a conversation about. Um, Partly because it doesn't lend itself to anything professional, so it definitely is a very leisure look. Um, if you're gonna do a notchless lapel, and just so I'm clear, actually, are you talking about like a shawl versus not having a notch, like a peak, or are you talking about where this is essentially folded in and then so you don't see any notch at all, right? Or this is just all one piece of fabric. I just wanted to make sure I had that correct. Because if it's the latter, like I said, I think it can be done well, but it is very much relaxed resort travel fun. And now, like a lot of guys are positioning that. All right, sounds sounds good. Are positioning that more like a kimono style, the kimono style look. So it can be done well, but as long as you know that that's leisure and that's not definitely not one of the first two or three looks that I would be utilizing for um, my first, I would say, six or seven jackets. But it can be a cool look, especially if you don't have to ever wear it to work or anything like that. So great question there. On Instagram, I have a question from Will P91. What's some good recommendations for a May wedding? Dress code is cocktail attire and it's outside. First thing that I would tell you to think about is something that breathes extremely well. Um, so my colleagues would probably talk about frescoes or hop sacks. Cocktail, and so those are good fabrics. I would also tell you to take a step back and think about the context of cocktail attire. Cocktail attire is going to be around something that can be more colorful. It doesn't have to be serious. It can be for some guys like formal. So this is when you'll see guys who are wearing the jacquard or the textured and colorful jackets that are a little bit more fun, extra. They look more outlandish, like a little bit more avant-garde and artistic, and you can throw that on. If you're looking to have some utility out of your look, this is time to throw on a great tan suit, um, and or a light blue suit. So not necessarily like the Carolina blue, sky blue, or any of those, and not even like a Duke Blues March Madness. So I'm gonna throw some of those out there. But this is more of a time for you to wear a cadet or navy type of blue that you can still wear well throughout the summer. This is when you can throw on a green suit. This is when you can throw on seersucker. This is when you can throw on linens. This is when you can throw on some mauve, right? Some canary yellow. You can start playing with these colors And then, especially with like canary yellow, you don't want to necessarily have that as a suit, but you could put that on as a jacket, a great pair of navy trousers, and a white shirt with a fun tie or a bow tie, right? If you're going to do the green, maybe you get a green blazer and you pair that with a great pair of cream trousers, or a great pair of washed and very unsaturated or bland um, blue trousers, right? So now you have this fun play on colors that you can leverage, and then maybe you pair that with a pink and blue checked shirt, right? So now you have all these different types of colors that are working together. For the spaces that you may find yourself in outside, May is great because May is not extremely hot. We're not in the peak of summer. We're still ending spring and we're coming into summer, so you don't have to worry about the weather being harsh, but it is warm. So I would just tell you things that are going to breathe well. If you can do unlined jackets, if you can do porous jackets, so mesh is also a great jacket to wear. Bamboo fabric is a great fabric to wear. All of these items will be really good for a May wedding. So, and then again, you can also play with some lighter colors, lighter some more bold patterns. Ariston, if you're unfamiliar with the line, then I got to figure out how I can show uh, pictures on here. Maybe in the upcoming weeks you'll see that. But this fabric company called Ariston has some super bold fabrics. If you just check out Ariston, Ariston, I believe it's Ariston Fabrics. I'm just gonna pull this up. See Ariston, yeah, AristonFabrics.com. You can always take a look at some of their bold patterns, which is awesome. Um, Another great question by Black Showman is: does poplin? I'm assuming poplin go with linen, and you're thinking about poplin for shirts. And sorry, you're not seeing those pop up on the live. For whatever reason, it does not allow us to show it on the streaming service that I use. But does poplin go with linen? Yes. I mean, poplin, for guys who don't know, is a plain weave shirt fabric that you can throw on for the warmer months. And poplin will often have a little bit of a sheen to it. So it does go with linen. It often is looked at as a slightly dressier summer fabric. I would tell you to look at something like Zephyr, Zepher, if I'm not mistaken, a cotton linen blend. You could easily do a Sea Island cotton, which is going to get expensive, but you could do that, or any porous, open, plain weave fabric will be really good for you as well. But poplin does go with it. I would tell you, if you're going to get a poplin shirt, to have it with something that's a little more on the dressier side of linen, which means that it's going to be heavier, it's usually going to be darker, and it is going to look more formalized just in its construction. So this is when you have like a peak lapel suit or a peak lapel blazer with a uh, flap side pockets over the patch pockets. Again, in reality, you could throw that on with patch pockets. Nobody's going to know the difference. You could throw it on with a more washed linen. Nobody's going to know the difference. But if you want to show the maximum representation for your look, that's a great way for you to do it. So great question there. I figured this was going to happen. We're going to have questions at the end. We have about 10 more minutes for the shoot around. If you are interested in joining the Menswear Mastermind, where we are talking more than just clothing, we're talking about masculinity, marriage, and manhood. We have 3 different perspectives. They're just not on tonight. We'll talk about the classic elements of menswear with Vladimir Roche. You'll have custom elements and the business casual components with myself. And then you also have the casual and thrifty components when it comes to my man Style Jumper. So we have some in-depth conversations. You get presentations, guest conversations that will come on. and it's just a good time. It's a great time to meet with some brothers, and I don't mean brothers as in us, just but there's a lot of us, but all types of brothers, all types of our sartorial brotherhoods, the fraternity of menswear and style, and all of us have been around or engaged with menswear on some level for the last decade, if not a little bit longer or a little bit less there. So if you're interested, you can go to patreon.com/menswear mastermind, and it is $47 a month, or you can join for the year and get 2 months free. All right. Bo P91 said, would you recommend a silk linen blend sport coat over pure linen? I guess that would depend on what goals you have for your sport coat. So let's look at a few elements here. Number one, when we start talking about the elements of a linen coat, you have a performance, you have a presentation, and then you also have a construction is probably the best way to say that. And then the same thing when we start talking about wool, linen, and silk, we have the performance, we have the presentation, and then we also have the construction. So when we start thinking about linen is guaranteed to wrinkle. I love that Polo when they were doing their linen pieces 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, maybe 15, 20 years ago. They had a tag on the inside that said guaranteed to wrinkle. And I always thought that was a cool thing because that's the biggest complaint guys have is they're like, oh man, when I wear my linen, it wrinkles. It's like that's what it's supposed to do, right? There is also the presentation component when it comes to wrinkling that I've always loved because there's a sensuality to it, from my perspective, and that is that it always reminds me of bed sheets after morning play. You know what I mean, right? And so I've always appreciated what that could represent to a lot of young ladies. And when I would wear linen, where I would have the most movement would also create wrinkles. And it has been my experience. I'm not saying that this is everybody, but it was often my experience that women found that interesting and they would often uh, run their hands over those creases, almost because it was showing how I moved. Right, there was a symbolism of how I was actually moving throughout the day, how I walked. So the length of my gait, how I reached and I held items. Right, all those different types of things work together. So it's guaranteed to wrinkle. The other thing that a lot of guys don't think about is that linen is going to expand throughout the day. So if you have on a linen jacket and let's say it's slightly fitted to you and it's bordering on tight, the benefit is over the course of the day as heat continues to hit the filaments of linen, and I forgot what the fiber is that it's escaping me. But as it hits the filament of linen, which is just the fibers of linen, it will expand. And as it expands, the item gets more comfortable. So you have that element, and then you also have the presentation that will come into play. So if you're doing something social, linen is great. It's going to wear well, it's going to expand, and it's going to have some visual interest, right? Now, the other side of that is once you take that off, it's not like wool, it's not resilient. So you need to make sure that you're steaming the item out, that is sitting out for a moment so that it can breathe, right? But it can also start to have some of the wrinkles fall out. But before you put it on again, you're going to have to steam it. And the construction of this can go several different ways. You can have a heavier linen, which is going to pair well with a more dressy look because the wrinkles are going to take longer to set in. You go with the lighter linen, that's going to have wrinkles all over the place almost as soon as you wear it because of its weight and the work that it needs to have. You can also start talking about different colors. So if I'm doing a dark navy, which I used to love wearing in linen, it's automatically going to be dressier because of how you put it on. Versus if I have on a tan linen suit, which I would also wear, or I had a gray linen suit, and even though I dressed it up, it still always looked very casual. and that was just because of the tint of the suit. So it was a very light gray. It was a light tan, so it exposed all of those wrinkles, right? Which I still got plenty of compliments on. It still was great. I just couldn't really wear it to anything that I needed to be dressed for. Silk wool linen is, or silk linen. He said silk linen. I added wool. So silk linen is doing the same thing that linen will do. The only thing that's different is that you're going to see a sheen, and that's depending on the blend. So a lot of guys don't think about this when we start talking about a blended fabric. Then you're going to see 20/80. So you may see 20% silk, 80% linen, or 80% silk and 20% linen. And all this is doing is lending some of the essence of the other piece or the other fiber to that look. So if you had like an 80% linen, 20% silk garment, it's still going to wrinkle. It may take a little bit longer for it to wrinkle, but you're going to see sheen in the fabric. You're going to see those shiny elements that's going to add visual interest to the fabric. If it's 80% silk and 20% linen, then what you're having is a little bit of freedom and movement, but you're still having a heavy sheen on the fabric. And if I'm being honest, you probably wouldn't see a whole lot of silk linen with where the silk is going to be higher than the linen, unless it's a very high grade linen, or it is a matted or matted silk. So if you have a matted silk, it's going to be much more diluted as far as the sheen is concerned, based on the way that they finished the silk that you're wearing. I hope that made sense. I know that was a lot of higher conversation that can get lost, right? But I hope that made some sense for you. It is 8:24. I got time for like one, maybe two more questions if they're quick. If not, I hope you guys enjoyed this too. I'm sorry that my co-host couldn't be on tonight, but wanted to make sure that you had this conversation and that your questions were being answered. If not, I don't see any more questions. Okay, I'm glad it made sense. I don't see any more questions, so since I don't see any more questions, we will go ahead and end the conversation today. Thank you guys for joining me, and I appreciate you not having me look here on here looking at myself, not able to answer any questions. And I hope that your questions were answered; they were beneficial. And outside of that, listen, be great today. Then again, you know you already are. So now all you have to do is show up and show out in style, even on Menswear Mastermind. All right. And so we will see you next week. Peace.